All right. So let me come back to this and let me reshare, and then we can get this going again. Okay. All right. So we are recording this event. It will be available on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Comments in the Zoom chat window do not appear in the recording. For Zoom, you want to use the chat box to enter your questions, so please use that. I will be facilitating the conversation if there are any questions. Otherwise, during the call, when Ruth pauses, you can stop and ask your question if you feel more comfortable doing it that way. Wanted to give everybody a little bit of background on Jeff Morris, who can't be with us today. I'm going to be your guest host for the next couple of months while he is recovering. He started Career DFW in 2008. And with that, he found out that more people needed to be exposed and needed help with the career job search. So he started careerusa.org in 2012. He also wrote the book Your Job Search, which you can buy on Amazon. And he also leads the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group since 2007. And he's been a member of the PIT Crew since 2017. And that's Dallas PIT Crew, and that stands for Practice Interview Team. So if you're interested in practicing an interview before you actually have the real interview, I highly encourage you to sign up for that. With that, we have 4 different experts who will be talking about LinkedIn on a rotating basis going forward. So we have Locke Alderson, Terry Sullivan, Ruth Lipsky, and Kurt Vandemotter. And today we're going to be having Ruth Lipsky, who is a career consultant with Lee Hecht Harrison. She specializes in the enhancements that LinkedIn rolls out, particularly the improvements that job seekers can use. So with that, I will turn it over to Ruth, who will get started with her presentation.
Thank you so much for that introduction. We are going to be talking about LinkedIn and the tools that are available for people who are looking for a job, things that are going to be needed in order to keep things moving with some help from LinkedIn. So we'll start out by just talking about how do recruiters use this. And a lot of recruiters are using the LinkedIn Recruiter software. And in this, they are looking for generally a basic search, starting off with a title, starting off with some skills. They might put a geographic location, but that's not as much of a need anymore. So titles and skills, what comes back from LinkedIn is thousands of options. And LinkedIn does not do anything randomly. The people are in the order that LinkedIn feels is most important. And the recruiter is normally going to go through maybe 100, 125 of these. But in order to settle it out from this nearly 43,000 choices, they've created spotlight features. So open to work can be sorted. Company connections. Are you connected to somebody within that company? They feel that you have a better understanding of what the company does, what the culture is, if you know somebody in the company. Are you interested in the company? Are you following the company? And are you in the area of active talent? And active talent has a couple different meanings there, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But if you could, take a look at when LinkedIn gives information to the recruiter, they're going to give a name, they're going to give their current headline, geographic location, current title, and the last titles. That's about it. There's a lot of information that you work on carefully in order to craft and then show your skills, show your experience, but that's not showing up in these searches. The only thing that the recruiter really has to look at is this small piece of information. So let's keep that in mind because we're going to have to use this information to communicate our skills to the recruiter.
Hey, Ruth,
Yes?
are you saying you're higher in the spotlight or higher in the search results if you're following the company that's doing the search?
Yes. So if
Good to
you
know.
follow a company, that brings you toward the top of any search. If you are connected to somebody within the company, that brings you up higher. LinkedIn gives your profile a score every day based on the amount of activity, based on how complete your profile is. And that's going to be part of how this algorithm is bringing up people.
And apologies if I missed it, but what's active talent?
I'll talk about that in just a minute. It includes several different things.
Gotcha.
Okay. So we will talk about headlines and titles because that's part of the original search, skills because that's part of the basic search, and we'll talk about the different spotlight features, and I'll stop after each category so that if you want to ask questions or go back over some of the features, we can do that. One of the things to remember is when people come onto your LinkedIn profile, 30% of the people who land on your profile aren't even going to scroll down. They're going to see what's in that top portion, which means they're going to be looking at the background you have, the headline, and the first 4 lines of your about section. Most people, 97% of them, aren't going to read your about section. It is needed for the algorithm and it's needed for the recruiters once they've decided that you've got the skills and they're looking for more information, but most people aren't going to be reading that information. It still needs to be there. The LinkedIn algorithm needs that information. And when the recruiter or the hiring manager is doing some research on you, they're going to need to see that too. But since the headline is really the only thing that LinkedIn is providing to the recruiters when they're doing a search, you need to be able to have a headline that says something about yourself. So if you are a full stack application developer, having the languages that you're comfortable with, that you've got experience in, is going to be the most powerful way of telling the recruiter that you've got the skills because those are probably the key skills that the recruiter's looking for. If you have something that is more broad, like a project manager or a program manager, talk about what type of work you do there. And that can be specializing in, focused on, able to, something that's going to give them a better feel for what did you do as a project manager. That's one of those titles that could be anywhere in an organization and could be doing a lot of different types of activities. As you're going into other types of titles, what are you doing that you want a new company to understand that you can do for them? So your value statement is going to be here. If you are in the higher levels of an organization, you're probably going to want to be a little bit more strategic in what you're saying. So if you're a VP of marketing, creating value for business through effective marketing strategies, director of customer relations, helping the world become more customer-centric. This is going to be a lot better than just having a title in your headline. It tells the recruiter a little bit more about what you can do. You can also expand the titles that you have in your experience section. My title at Lee Hecht Harrison is career consultant, but it's known as a career coach in a lot of different parts of the industries. So I put both of them there because I'm translating my title into something that might be more understandable to somebody in a different industry. In this example, I had a title that was part of training and development, but the only thing I really did with my team was to move the training from classroom training into something that could be done virtually. So although this was the title that I had, Senior Manager of Training and Development, I really had a job that was an instructional designer and an e-learning developer. So I put those in parentheses to say, this is the primary work that I did. Here are the titles associated with the experience that I had in this job. So having more than one title in your experience section is going to increase the likelihood that a recruiter is going to recognize it. It's going to explain your role more carefully. And it's going to quite often be using the titles that LinkedIn has standardized. A lot of companies are giving titles that are interesting and different, but nobody outside that company truly understands what that means. So if you've been given a title that you want to preserve because you worked at that company, you can also translate it by putting it in parentheses or putting it next to a pipe that says, this is what I really did. Everybody okay on titles? Patty's going
One
to be watching
question,
out for anything that's coming up in the chat too. So if you have questions that you don't want to forget, you can put them in the chat and Patty will bring them up.
what do you
Exactly.
reckon?
Sorry, I had a really quick question for you. So we should do this in first person, where you say, I provided a structured roadmap, because I've seen some people have things in third person, like Ruth was responsible or did this, right? So it should be in first person.
Tradition is that it's in first person because it sounds as if it's more engaging and more comfortable and friendly. If it's in a third person, like Ruth did this, it sounds pretty remote and you're not really engaging with the person who's reading it. So
Okay.
yes, I go with the I, me, my. Not in a resume, that the resume needs to be without any designation of me, my, we, our. But LinkedIn is a friendlier site.
Regarding
Sorry,
titles, what do
Pat,
you
you had a question.
recommend for C levels? Chief Financial Officer spelled out, CFO, or both?
LinkedIn can handle both of them. So there are some titles that are used in LinkedIn that can be used in either way. So if you have CFO, fine. If you wanted to spread it out, Chief Financial Officer, depends on how much room you've got left with the rest of the statement that you're making. It's the same thing if you were you were a recruiter. If somebody is searching for somebody in talent engagement, that would be the same as a recruiter search. So LinkedIn does keep a thesaurus of some sort. But if you're
Thank you.
talking to people who may not know what CFO means, then you always need to spell it out.
Yep. Any other questions from anybody? I don't have anything in the chat. Okay.
So let's take a look at skills. Skills are going to be used by the recruiter in order to determine whether you've done this type of work before. And being able to find the skills that are needed for that role, regardless of what industry it is or how you're going to be looking for your job, is going to be important to have in your LinkedIn profile. And one of the best places to go is the Career Explorer Network. It's a separate page on the LinkedIn. And see if I can get it there. LinkedIn has information outside of the norm of LinkedIn that you're working with. They have independent pages, they have company pages outside of the LinkedIn fields that you're working with. And this is one of them. This is LinkedIn, GitHub, Career Explorer. Let me put that into the chat.
I put it in the chat already.
Oh, you're so good. Okay. And what it does is that it says, here's a job that you may have, and here are jobs that you're considering. And it does an analysis of where are the skills that overlap. And it will walk through and decide that of the 36,000 skills that LinkedIn has, and there's no place that they list those all, they're going to be looking for what skills are going to be associated with a job. So you can walk through this and see how they're overlapping, how they're working on things. but really we want to go down to the portion where it says, what are the skills for, let's say, a project manager? And there are a lot of them. We'll go with an engineering project manager. These are all of the skills that LinkedIn expects to see when you have that type of a job. And they're in order. So the top ones are the more important ones. The ones at the bottom may be nice to have in some industries, but not necessary for all industries. It also gives you the ability to say, I want to find jobs that are similar to it. And here we go. 82% of the skills match this job. So becoming an engineering manager is probably a good move, but there are some skills that are different. Skills that would need to be built are in the middle here. And they have these little tiny boxes here that say, here are the skills in common. Here are the ones that are probably going to be needed to be added. So as you have your job listed out, you can take a look and see what other skills are needed if you're looking to move laterally in an organization or up in an organization. Looking for the similarity is probably the best one to start out with, but you also have some popularity ones where this is a move that is very normal in an organization, moving from an engineering project manager to a project manager. But it does give some information on things that might be a little bit different. So this is a good site to be able to check your skills. And when a recruiter is working with the LinkedIn recruiter software, they're probably taking the skills from this type of list in order to determine if the person is capable of doing the role that they're looking for. Okay, on that one and how to find it?
Yeah, I see that we have Atlanta metropolitan area, so you can go ahead and type in Greater Dallas Metroplex or something up there too, for
You can
select your
put in
city at the
just
top.
about any of them that you're interested in. There's really not that much difference when you're going from one city to another. And it's all in USA cities. It's not listed as anything in North America or anything outside of the United States.
Okay. I do have a question in the chat for you, Ruth. It says, under the experience section, the title field, my prior position was lease administrator. This specific title cannot be found, so I hand type the position lease administrator. There is a leasing administrator, but that isn't the same job. Is that okay that I type the title? How does that affect any recruiter search?
The recruiter is going to be looking for job families. So when they're doing that type of search, LinkedIn is going to give them the exact match on title, but it's going to give the other job titles that seem to be a close match to it in case your company was calling it one thing, but using that position as something else. So being able to translate that, if it is not one of the standard LinkedIn titles, and you'll be able to find all 6,000 LinkedIn titles up in this area to enter a job area. But if it's not in there, find something that is similar to it. You may not be able to find it on this page. You may have to be going to LinkedIn and looking at the jobs tab and seeing if there are some jobs that are similar in nature to what you were doing and adding that into your profile.
She said, okay, thank you. That answers her question. Any
Okay.
other questions before we go on? No. Okay.
All right. Now here are the spotlight features that we're going to be talking about. LinkedIn created this hashtag open to work about 6 years ago because they felt that there was no shame to being unemployed. And that if you're going to be networking with people and letting them know that you're open for a job, you may as well put it out on LinkedIn. What it does is that LinkedIn has indicated to, through their statistics, that if you have a public hashtag open to work, you're probably going to get 20 to 50% more in-mails from recruiters, which means that recruiters are going to be contacting you for an interview much more often than if they can't see that. It does age though. So it needs to be turned off every 2 months and then turned back on. LinkedIn has as part of its features an understanding that if you leave it open for too long, maybe you just forgot to turn it off. Can't imagine not being able to remember to turn it off, but LinkedIn does age it, and by the time it's 2 months, it probably is not giving you the features that it wants. And the hashtag open to work is a huge one because it is the most frequently used filter in the LinkedIn recruiter software. So a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people think that it's indicating that you are desperate or that you just don't have the ability to find a job elsewhere. The fact is that it is a tool that recruiters use consistently. There will be some recruiters who look at it negatively, but that's how recruiters are going to work. Some are going to like it, some are not going to like it. The bulk of them like it. But it's up to you as to whether you want to continue using that or not.
I have a question for you. If you put open to the hashtag open to work in your about section, do recruiters see it?
Now, if you have it in your about section, that's not something that's searchable. None of the hashtags are. So it has to be in the area that is, let me go there.
You mean the green frame around your face?
So you've got two choices when you're looking at the open to work. You can be looking at it for recruiters only. So the recruiters who are utilizing the LinkedIn Recruiter software are going to be able to see that you are open to work. Unfortunately, only half of all recruiters are using the LinkedIn Recruiter software. The others are simply using the search bar that's at the top of the pages here. So using it for recruiters only means that you're only talking to half of the recruiters who are using LinkedIn to find a new talent. Putting this all LinkedIn members is going to give you that hashtag open to work banner around your headshot, and it's going to be visible to everybody, including all recruiters.
Yep. So I think that answers Linda's question about does refreshing apply to the green frame? And yes, that's the open to work banner that goes around your picture that we are talking about.
There you go.
So Lisa said, how do you remove the green banner and turn it back on? So I think you just demonstrated that, right?
Yeah, so that when you're in this feature, you're going to be editing it. And on the bottom left-hand side, there's going to be a delete button, so you can get rid of it. Keep an eye on what you've got in this area, because sometimes that disappears when you delete it, and then you have to enter it in all over again. Most of the time, that shouldn't be a problem, but if you've forgotten what your 5 titles are that you're allowed to put into this section, be nice to remember them. Just take a picture of them and re-enter them after 2 months.
Great tip. Thanks. No other questions right now in the chat, so back to you, Ruth.
Okay. Now, the mutual interest is we're letting the company know that we're interested in them, that we want to work for them. And there are 4 different ways that you can tell a company that you're interested in them on LinkedIn. So we'll go back into the LinkedIn profile. And up in this top portion, we're going to put a company name. Anybody have a company they want to offer?
Does anyone want Ruth to look up a company?
USAA.
All right. There will be a drop down. And it will give you a small box. You're going to go right onto the view the page. The first thing you're going to see is that you can follow the company. And when you follow the company, you're telling them that you want to see information on your home page as they are putting material into LinkedIn. So if they are looking for new products, if they are talking about activities that they're doing, if they are changing things, if they are opening up a new facility, that's all going to come onto your homepage because you're following the company. Now in the about section, and don't use this about section, go to this about section. You can scroll down and there's a box that says, are you interested in working with us in the future? If you have not found a job on the job boards that fits who you are and what you want to do, you can click on the I'm interested, and this also brings you to the top of a recruiter search. Because you've expressed an interest in that company that is more than just, I want to hear about your products, what you're doing. Now I'm talking about, I want to work with you. So that's your second way of connecting with the company. The third one is under the jobs section here. And when you click on jobs, right underneath it is you can create a job alert. And when you create a job alert, you can put in something very specific. And you can put in a job location. Most companies still want to know where you're living. Even though a lot are remote these days, you would still need to put that in. But when you create a job alert, anytime that company posts a job on LinkedIn that matches your profile, LinkedIn is going to push back to the recruiter, you just posted a job for this. Here are 5 profiles of people who have expressed an interest in that type of role and whose profiles fit the skills that you're looking for. So creating a job alert is the most powerful way of getting interest in a company. But LinkedIn only allows you to have 20 job alerts. So use only 1 per company and make sure that you save enough for the jobs tab because you're going to need some for the jobs tab too.
Yeah, Ruth, I was going to ask you about that if you think that they're ever going to expand that, especially as we're looking at variety of companies, be it larger companies, mid-sized startups, or whatever that utilizes our
They
skills.
have not indicated that, and not every company has this feature in it. They have to be able to utilize that internally for this. So if you're looking for a smaller company, you may be able to see that you can follow it, but they won't necessarily have a working for us in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But they will generally have that job alert.
Mm-hmm.
Then looking at the people, one of the things that LinkedIn is looking for when they're providing people's profiles to a recruiter is, do you know somebody in the company? And when you click on people, they're going to show all the people who work for USAA in this case. And it's going to be broken down. Here's the United States, but here's the background on all these. You can open them up a little bit more if you wish. Where they studied, what they do, this is what department they work in. If you want to connect to somebody in the company and you generally have the best chance of finding somebody who has a similar job to you and sending them a note on that. What they're skilled at, what they studied aren't particularly interesting, but how you're connected is an important one. If you've got first-degree connections and you're applying for a job, you can take a look at those first-degree connections and ask if any of them would be willing to champion you. I've applied for this role. Do you know who the hiring manager is? Would you mind shooting him a note or her a note, letting them know that I've got the experience to be considered? And since a lot of companies give a bonus for people who are hired on an employee's recommendation, that's not a bad thing for the company to, or for the employees to be able to look at. So being able to look a little bit more closely here, let's go back to the main, where they live. Let's say that we're just interested in the San Antonio metropolitan area, and you want to connect with someone. Well, you can go in and find what department and see the people in that department, but the people who are most likely to connect with you are the recruiters. Their job is people. They are generally more likely to connect to people. We've got 144 recruiters in the San Antonio metropolitan area, which is more than I thought it would be, so it's a big list. This is going to give you everybody who is currently a recruiter and everybody who was ever a recruiter. So you may need to sort out the people who are no longer in the role of recruiting and find the ones who are going to be more associated with who you are and what you're going to be looking for. If you can scroll down and see if anybody has that hashtag hiring, that's a good person to connect to. Here's a person who is saying that they have outstanding requisitions. They're looking for people, connecting with them, where you're giving them a statement of, I have applied for this role because of my skills and experience in this. Would love to discuss. Let's connect. Never use the white connect button because that sends the automated response from LinkedIn. I'd like to be part of your network. Click on their picture or their name and use the blue connect button that is on their profile page. That gives you the ability to personalize the message. But if you wanted to find the person who you could be interviewed by, maybe we can say that we're going to be looking for the vice president of IT. And they got 190 of them. Whoa, okay. So then sorting this out might be a bit difficult. You might want to use some of the other filters in order to decide how you're going to be looking. But find at least one person that you think is going to connect with you. Continue to request. You've got a limit on the number of personalized requests you can have each month. So choosing the person that you think is the best bet for a personalized request is going to be important. So
And
those are
Ruth,
4 ways you're going to connect with a company.
regarding the recruiters that you have there, there's no way to export that information and so that you could do your own sorting.
Now,
Everything's through filtering in LinkedIn, correct?
exactly.
Mhm.
It used to be that LinkedIn had that capability, but they took that away. And I think it was because they were concerned that people would be selling services on LinkedIn and they wanted to minimize that as much as possible.
Mhm.
So 4 ways to connect. Follow. Use the About section to say I'm interested. Use the Job section to set up a job alert. And then connect to somebody, at least one person within the company. And if you can do those 4 things, then you're going to come up higher on the list when a recruiter is looking for talent. Okay, on that section?
Yeah, so far I don't see any questions on this section. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask Ruth at this time, you can go ahead and ask your question. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to Ruth.
Okay, let's take a look at one other way that we can find people that might be able to help us out in a company. And somebody give me a school that they went to, university or a college. Just shout it out.
Illinois State University.
Illinois State. If you went to that school, then you're probably already following it, so you don't need that. But you're going to view the page, and you're not interested in anything else except the alumni, because the college or university is going to tell you that there are a number of people who attended this school in the last 124 years and who have a LinkedIn profile. This first set of information, where they work, is going to be the most valuable one for you. Because if you wanted to still continue with USAA, there's 64 people who are currently working at USAA. These down here say that they used to work at USAA, but now they've moved to someplace else. So it's not their current job, but they have worked there in the past. So let's take a look at the 64 who work there. If you can use some of the other filters in order to narrow it down if you want to. But being able to go onto these people's profile pages and say, I see you also went to Illinois State University. I enjoyed my time there. I'm considering opportunities at USAA because of my background in blank. Let's connect. And when you're giving a person a reason to connect, they're generally much more likely to accept your connection and possibly much more likely to help you out in champion you, in recommending you, in talking about, I've got an interview coming up, any suggestions on what I prepare for. You might be able to talk about what questions came up when they were interviewing. So all good things. If you've got a kid who went to a school, you can use that as a networking opportunity also. My daughter currently goes to Illinois State University. She loves it there. I'm looking to move into USAA in this area. So having an introduction that just says, I have something in common with you. I may not have gone to the school, but my kid did. And by golly, if I pay tuition to somebody, I get to use their name. So use that. So either schools or just going onto the company page to find the things that might be needed. Okay, so we've got the 4 ways that we're connecting with a company that we believe in and that we want to get a little bit closer to. We followed the company, we set up the job alerts through that job section, we clicked on the interest button, and we connected to employees. Those are the things you need. Now, you need to increase your visibility also. So you have to be active on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is there to help you. They want to be able to connect. They want to be able to talk. They want to be able to have discussions. So being active on LinkedIn has a couple different things, and this is what that active talent spotlight feature is. When you're active on LinkedIn, that means that you are out there at least 3 times a week doing something, hitting the enter button. It could be that you are looking for a job. It could be that you are searching for a company and setting up your followings. But you need to be able to do something at least 3 times a week. You need to be able to respond to the recruiter outreach. So if you get a message from a recruiter that says, we have a job, looks like you might be a good fit for it, let's set up some time to talk. If you ignore that, LinkedIn knows it and brings down your likely to respond number. You need to be able to respond to recruiters, even if it's to say, not interested in that, I'm looking for a higher level or something of that sort. Make sure that you respond to that. If it is a sales call and they are trying to sell you a service, then you can ignore them. Active talent also means that if you have updated your LinkedIn profile recently, they're going to give you bonus points for that because it means you're trying to communicate who you are and what you can do. If you choose to share your resume with recruiters by attaching it to your profile, that brings you some benefit. Doesn't seem to be as much though. But look at this. If you worked at an organization that had a layoff and you were part of that layoff, LinkedIn brings you up to the top of the recruiter search because you're available. You've been let go from that company. Recruiters are going to want to see that because more and more we're seeing that companies are laying people off because of financial restructuring and concerns with being competitive in today's environment. And they are having to let go people who are enormously talented people. And recruiters at other companies want to find them. This is one of the ways that they find them. So when we're taking a look at being active on LinkedIn, there are 2 ways you can do that on the home page. On the home page, you're going to have a list of people talking to you. They're going to be talking about some interesting tip or tool that they've discovered. They're going to be talking about activities within their company. but you can comment on those posts. But when you comment, you need to use a minimum of 12 words. It used to be 8, now it's 12. So it can't just be thanks for sharing. It needs to be thanks for sharing. I saw this also in this company, and I appreciate how management was responding to it. You got to get 12 words out there to get full benefit of a post. Don't use anything that is an emoticon, an emoji, any of those, because they don't show up well in searches. LinkedIn does not have the ability to do any formatting within its features. You have to cut and paste from another document in order to get indentations, bullet points. LinkedIn doesn't have that. So being able to avoid using features that are unusual because they get translated differently across different sizes of devices and different features. So 3 times a week, go out and comment on a post, 12 words. You can also post comment content that you find elsewhere or that you write yourself. That gives more oomph and normally has a higher value to your LinkedIn score than just commenting. But it can be an article that you find on another site. You want to bring it into LinkedIn, add your comments on why you're doing it. Do it once a week, but don't post on Mondays and Fridays. People aren't on LinkedIn as much on those days. And if you're still able to use hashtags, use that. But as people respond to your content, reply to them, because the longer you have engagement and discussions, the more LinkedIn rewards you for that.
Do hashtags count as a word?
No, right now. LinkedIn
So-
says that they're going to bring the hashtags back, but we haven't seen it in the way that they've had it in the past. So
Okay.
we're still waiting for that to come back.
And do the hashtags, not to be flippant, but do they have to match something that's already out there? Or can, if you're in a hurry, can you just, make some up that makes sense to you?
Well, you're normally going to make it match what you've got in your profile. Never use it in the title area because it distorts the search and you won't be found then. But you can use it in your about section.
I was
So
talking about the posts.
yeah, you can use it in the post. 3 to 5 in the post is fine. Any more than that, you've got too much. But you can also use it in the about section. Just by saying these are the things I'm following, but you can put it at the end of a paragraph so that it summarizes what you did. But when you're on the home page, you may notice that a lot of people are putting in hashtags, but if you follow the hashtag, it's going to bring you into a page where this is the only thing that they're talking about. They're talking about job search on every one of these because they have that hashtag. So if you wanted to use a hashtag, using one that LinkedIn has already created is useful because it guides people to the rest of the comments, the rest of the discussion, but it's not necessary. We've got nearly 2 million people following this hashtag job search. That's a good one.
Yep,
Thank you.
that's why I use that one in my post.
And it does, because a hashtag that has 1 million people following it, and you put that in your post, if you didn't put it in your post, your message would go to the people who are in your network. When you put the hashtag in, it goes to people outside your network, hugely outside your network, and could be going to 1 million or 2 million people, and not just the 400 or 500 or 600 that you've got in your actual network. So it expands your voice and is useful that way. So recruiter messages, reply to every message. LinkedIn is tracking that likely to respond score. And if it is a solicitation or they're asking you to purchase something, just ignore them.
That's good advice. I've seen a lot of solicitation. I have resume writing services, or whatever. And
Training, lots of
yeah,
training.
yeah, for sure. Great. Well, thanks so much, Ruth, for your insightful presentation and showing us how to use these different tips as we go through LinkedIn and to make ourselves more visible to recruiters and others. Does anybody have any questions that you would like to ask Ruth? Um, I don't see anything in the chat except thank you. Most of what you said I had not heard before. So that was very enlightening. Thank you very much, Ruth.
Can I
Anything
revisit the
else?
hashtags? So I haven't used hashtags at this point. When commenting on a post, can I get some examples of what you should use? Is it important to match things that are in my profile? Is it important to match things that are related to the post? Can I see an example of how to use them?
You're going to be taking a look at what it is that you're posting. So, let me see if this might not be the best one for it. So let's take a look at hashtag future. If you're going to be commenting or starting your own post, you're generally going to decide what audience you want that to see this information. So if you're talking about, I'm looking for a job, I'm looking for something new to do in my career, you would be using the hashtag job seeker, possibly hashtag interviews, but they're going to be a fair number that are going to be associated with job search. If you are posting something that is that you're looking for an opportunity to talk about, how are we using artificial intelligence? How is that going to be used in the future? Then you're going to have a different set of hashtags. And quite often you're going to be able to put in the hashtags. No, that wasn't a real one. Some people are going to make up hashtags. And if you wanted to make up a hashtag in order to be a little bit more clever, you can certainly do that. But generally 3 to 5 that seem to be associated to the message, particularly if you're trying to expand your voice so that you're being seen by more than just the people within your networking group.
Now, when I've used hashtags in the past on posts, it used to come up with like different suggestions of hashtags for me. So if I said did job search, it would come up with others as I was typing, but I haven't seen that recently.
And it used to be that it would have some suggestions here, hashtag interviewing,
Right.
hashtag interview questions. But they don't have that anymore.
Uh-huh. That must have changed in the last year or so.
That's about what it did, and they're beginning to say, do you want to rewrite this with AI? I have not seen that AI has really given us much usefulness there.
If you clicked on that button, what would it say?
It won't do anything for me because I don't have premium.
Ah, okay.
So that's only a feature that can be used if you've got a premium account.
Okay. I'll have to try that. I do have premium, so.
Yay. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah. Another comment. Thanks, Ruth, for an outstanding presentation today. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Ruth? And I have some slides that I want to go through.
I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
Sure. So besides that one outlier that you sent to us, sorry, when we went into the place where the LinkedIn, the GitHub, does LinkedIn have a list of these other places that provide career advice, or just
That's the only place I've been able to see that has the job titles and the skills associated with the jobs. So it's a good site to be able to look at. It's got some other features there about the future of work and some statistics on things. I don't find that quite as useful, but if I'm creating a new profile or I'm creating a new resume and I want to make sure I pick the right skills, as a person, you've got 2,000 skills. You're trying to narrow it down to just a handful that you want to talk to people about. So seeing what LinkedIn feels is important is a good way to start. But then going back and taking a look at what are the job descriptions saying as the skills. Those are the ones you need to be looking at also.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Any other questions from anybody while we have Ruth with us today?
Thank you,
Just-
Ruth.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very helpful. Learned a
My pleasure.
lot
Thank
of
you.
new things.
Yes, we're going to see what other new things they come up with in the next couple of months, I'm sure. So stay tuned, everybody, as AI also continues to develop, and they develop as well. All right, I have a few other slides that I want to share with everybody. So I'm going to bring that up again and get that into presentation mode here. One second. All right. So one of the things that we like to talk about is this LinkedIn promise. So you can repeat and then you say your name, promise to always send a personal note whenever I send a LinkedIn request to connect with anyone. This includes when I use my cell phone or my computer. So when you're on your computer, you want to use that blue connect button as Ruth has shown us in the presentation. And then just to remind everybody what it's looking like now as far as the different webinars that are available through Career DFW and Career USA. So on Tuesdays, as you're here today, 1 p.m. Central, we have our LinkedIn Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, Ron Layton is continuing that. That's the interviewing. And then on Fridays at 9:30 a.m. Central, North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. That is going on, and that's hosted by Matt Keelan and Walt Glass. And just to give you a little bit of information about the practice interview team on Wednesdays, on the 4th Wednesdays is when it is a Zoom. If you would like to go there and be in person, it's on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th Wednesdays of the month, and the information is listed here in Plano. On Friday, this upcoming Friday, and maybe Matt, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about what you're going to be presenting on Friday.
Sure. Technology tips and tricks. I'm going to show you some things you didn't know your PC and your smartphone could do. Also, I'm going to talk about some ways you can save some serious money on your tech and some other resources as well. So come join us. We're going to have some fun.
Great. And that's in Zoom and in person.
Correct. With
Great.
lunch after.
Yes. So they all go out to lunch afterwards. Sorry, I'm not offering that today. So again, you'll want to join Career DFW and careerusa.org in the LinkedIn groups. So you should be able to find those. And then also you can go onto YouTube where you can click on playlists under Career USA and you can find all of the previously recorded sessions for you to attend and listen to. And then here's where you can see some of the different ones that we've had in the past. And that's when you click this on LinkedIn. And if you aren't receiving any emails about the workshops, you want to join the Career USA mailing list, you can scan the QR code or you can send an email to Career USA plus subscribe at groups.io. And then also note that Career DFW is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have no full or part-time employees. We survive on donations. So please consider making a donation when you get your next job. And if your new company makes matching donations, we are registered. If you do not see us listed, let us know who they use. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us today. And I hope that you have a really good rest of your week.
Thanks, Patty. Thanks, Ruth.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks.